15 minutes and 23 seconds. That was all it took to change the future of America. But what happened in that empty building on Chicago's South Side was never supposed to be recorded, never supposed to be remembered. Until now. Because tonight, you'll learn how a single Harvard ring turned a gang leader into a believer and a young community organizer into a future president. August 28, 1985, South Side of Chicago. Young community organizer Barack Obama had no idea that he would return home that evening as a completely different person. In his hands was just one file, a job placement project for neighborhood youth. But hidden inside was something far more dangerous than any weapon. It was hope. Welcome to Real Life Stories Crew. Before we begin this story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, hit that subscribe button. Because what you'll learn tonight will never appear in any history book. The Altgeld Gardens housing project was a fortress, surrounded by industrial waste and abandoned lots. It was a place Chicago had forgotten. But survival meant one thing: respect the Disciples Gang. Obama was working in this corner of America, just 24 years old. He had graduated from Harvard Law School with honors, but nobody knew that. He presented himself as just an ordinary community organizer. Why? Because in this neighborhood, being educated was a death sentence. The neighborhood was controlled by Tony the Snake Rodriguez, a 32-year-old man who'd been in and out of prison since he was 15. But Tony wasn't your typical gang leader. He was smart, calculating, and had an uncanny ability to know when someone was hiding something. And Barack Obama was hiding something big. Obama had been working here for 3 months. Every morning, he'd drive from Hyde Park to one of Chicago's most dangerous areas. He'd tell people he went to college in New York, never mentioning Columbia University, and most importantly, he never wore the ring. The Harvard Law School graduation ring sat in his apartment, wrapped in tissue paper like a secret shame. Beautiful white gold with the Harvard seal. But in Altgeld Gardens, that ring was a target on his back. When Obama arrived at the community center that morning, something was different. The usual crowd had disappeared. The only people visible were 3 men in dark clothes, Rodriguez's crew. At exactly 3:47 p.m., as Obama finished his paperwork, the front door opened. Tony Rodriguez entered, moving with quiet confidence. "Barack Obama," Tony said, his voice calm but carrying an edge. "We need to talk." "First thing you can do is stop lying to my people," Tony continued. "You think because we didn't go to your fancy schools we can't spot a fake?" Marcus, one of Tony's men, stepped forward. "This dude's been asking too many questions, Tony." "That ain't normal community organizer stuff." Tony pulled out a folded paper. "We did some checking. Barack Hussein Obama, born in Hawaii, went to school in Los Angeles, then New York. But here's what's interesting, there's a gap in your story." Obama's palms were sweating. These men had done their homework. "You're going to tell us the truth about who you really are," Tony said, "because community organizers don't move like you move. They don't carry themselves like they're used to being in charge." Obama realized he'd been made. Continue the lie or take the biggest risk of his life. "I think you're either a cop, a Fed, or something else entirely," Tony said, stepping closer. "And until you prove otherwise, you're a threat." Then Obama made a decision that would change everything. He reached into his pocket slowly, watching as all 3 men tensed. But instead of pulling out a weapon, he pulled out his car keys. Attached was something he'd been carrying for months but had never shown anyone. His Harvard Law School graduation ring. The effect was immediate. Marcus stepped back. The third man's eyes widened, and Tony Rodriguez actually gasped. "What the hell is that?" Tony whispered. Obama held the ring up clearly. The Harvard seal caught the light. Harvard Law School, class of 1991, magna cum laude, first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review in the school's 104-year history. The silence was deafening. These men had expected a gun, a badge, maybe a confession. But this was something none of them had prepared for. Tony stared at the ring, then at Obama's face. You're telling me you graduated from Harvard Law School and you're here working for $13,000 a year. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Why? Marcus asked. Because this is where the work needs to be done. Change doesn't happen in boardrooms. It happens in neighborhoods like this with people like you. Tony laughed, but with disbelief rather than mockery. Man, you could be making six figures downtown. Instead, you're here dealing with broken streetlights. It makes perfect sense, Obama replied. Those downtown law firms aren't going anywhere. But communities like this, they're disappearing. I can't change that from a corner office. That's when Tony Rodriguez did something that shocked everyone. He started to tear up. You know what this is? He said, holding up his hand with a simple silver ring. This is from my daughter's first communion, only valuable thing I own that I didn't steal. And you know why I keep it? Obama waited. Because it reminds me that there was a time when I thought I could be something different. I used to want to be a teacher. Can you believe that? The vulnerability in Tony's voice was startling. This wasn't the same man who'd walked in ready for confrontation. It's not too late, Obama said quietly. Tony looked at him sharply. What did you say? I said it's not too late. You're 32 years old. You're intelligent. You have leadership skills and the respect of this community. Those are exactly what teachers need. You think some principal is going to hire a gang leader? Tony asked. I think they'll hire a community leader who understands these kids better than anyone, Obama replied. You'd need your GED first, then college courses, then teacher certification, but it's possible. Tony was quiet. My son is 7 years old. You know what he told me last time I saw him? He said he wants to be just like his daddy. That's the worst thing anyone's ever said to me. Obama made a decision. Tony, give me 6 months. Help me with the job training program, youth mentorship, community development. If it works, if we can make a difference, then you consider making changes. And if it doesn't work? Then I'll leave and never come back. Tony looked at his men, then back at Obama. What makes you think we can trust some Harvard lawyer? Obama smiled. Because I'm asking you to trust someone who believes in this community as much as you do. The transformation didn't happen overnight. For 6 months, Tony became Obama's unlikely partner. The disciples became unofficial security for community programs. Violence decreased around the community center. Most importantly, Tony enrolled in GED classes. The day Tony passed his GED, he called Obama. I did it, he said, pride in his voice. 32 years old, and I finally finished high school. How does it feel? Like maybe my son doesn't have to be ashamed of his father. 3 years later, Tony Rodriguez graduated from Chicago State University with a degree in education. He became a teacher specializing in at-risk youth. 23 years later, on November 4, 2008, Tony sat with his son Miguel watching election returns. Miguel was now a successful attorney who'd graduated from Harvard Law School, following a path his father made possible. When Barack Obama was declared president, Tony said, "You know, I knew that man when he was just a community organizer." Really? Miguel asked. What was he like? Tony smiled, remembering that day Obama showed them his Harvard ring. He was someone who saw possibilities where everyone else saw problems. He looked at a gang leader and saw a teacher. Today, Tony Rodriguez is 71 years old. He's trained over 200 at-risk youth. His son Miguel runs a nonprofit providing legal services to low-income families. And sometimes, Tony still thinks about that moment when Obama held up that ring and changed everything. Not because of what the ring represented, but because of what the man wearing it chose to do with privilege. Have you ever encountered someone who saw possibilities you couldn't see in yourself? Tell us their story in the comments, because at Real Life Stories Crew, we believe the most important changes happen in moments of human connection that ripple through generations. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Help us keep alive the stories of quiet heroes who change the world one conversation at a time. And remember, sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or badge or law degree. Sometimes it's simply the willingness to see someone's potential and believe in it until they can believe in it themselves.